You know, tonight we're, we have a little community meeting going on here tonight, and we're going to talk about the fire department, neighborhood watch, and the new community resource program, as well as Brian Funke, our new sheriff-elect. He's going to have an opportunity at the end here to talk about, his new administration and what he's going to do. Right now we just had a call out. We have one, and here it's coming again. 1 minute. Yeah, hey Keith, you're already at the station going. Yeah, they're already gone. Donna and Michelle and they got enough people right now. No. Okay. Yeah.
Smoke eaters.
Okay. So now to get back to it. I'd like to spend a little time talking about the fire department. I know firsthand what this fire department can do, what they have done. Earlier this year, I had an opportunity to test the guys and, to see how professional they actually were. In August, I had a tree come down and knock my legs out from underneath me. And these guys showed up. Were able to take me out the back of my property, getting on the back board, putting me on a four-wheeler and taking me out of the back of my property, put me in a waiting ambulance. This is how professional these guys were. Everything went smooth. You couldn't ask for a better operation. And, that's why, these guys are my heroes. And I'm looking for volunteers for the fire department. We can always use more volunteers. We'll get you questions afterwards.
No, I was just saying you got me. I just haven't come down to meet you yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm Jason.
You're Jason. Hi, Jason. Okay.
No worries.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so, in the past couple of years, we've had a couple of fire chiefs, Mike Richter and Richard Hughes, and now, I'm the new fire chief for the fire department right now. And hopefully I can live up to the community standards and, and their expectations. Hoping that we can all work together and, and make this happen. I'd like to talk about what we have done with the fire department over the past couple of years. In the past couple of years, we've been awarded almost $500,000 in grants. In grants, one of them pays for $30 for each call out, $30 for each training meeting you go to, and pays for firefighter training, as well as it does pay for EMT, but we're looking to get new EMTs, and I think the board will help pay for that, for new EMT training. And we may be able to shift some of the money from this grant to pay for the EMT or EMR training. So we have a lot of things going on. The second grant we got was for new equipment. We have much needed equipment. All the equipment we have is 15 to 20 years old. And what we have now, we have new equipment coming in. We turn out here, new SCBA equipment, and and we're going to continue with more grants. I talked with all the firefighters, and we made a list and prioritized what we think is most important for the next thing that we need to do as far as grants. And hopefully we'll get them. There's no guarantees we will get the grants, but we're gonna try. We try the best we can. And today we need volunteers. We have a few volunteers on the department, but we always need more. And you don't need to be going out for every call out. You don't need to be there for I-90 call outs. You could be there for helping out with paperwork, helping out with other things in the department. Whether it's mechanic or even helping to fill out grants. There's a lot of things people can do that, we don't need strictly for fires or strictly for, call outs on I-90. So, if you think about it, what can you guys do? I know Jason, I got hold of Jason, and he's going to be a new volunteer for the fire department. Thank you for coming in, Jason.
You're welcome. I'm sorry I was late.
Oh, that's okay. And so, we're always looking for volunteers. If you guys think that is not for you, come in and try it. See what we do. Like I said, said, these guys are heroes, you know. To me, they are. They came out and rescued me, you know, and, you know, we could be there for you too. So, and I know in the past, we've been there for a lot of people in the community, and we will continue as such.
I tried to go to Lydia's grandfather.
Yeah. Yeah, they wouldn't leave me, you know. It actually worked out pretty good. I mean, it was pretty amazing. I don't think I was on the ground much more than 15 minutes before everybody was there, you know,
Yeah.
getting me out. And we're talking, they're coming from St. Regis, from here, people come from work. You know, and I walked today because, you know, because they were there quickly and took care of me. So I don't know if you guys all heard about that, but you know, it was quite an ordeal. So, we're going to take some time, we're going to talk about neighborhood watch, and we're also going to talk about the new community resource program that's being put together. And after that, after we get done talking about these, we're going to open up for questions, and we're going to let Brian Funke get up there and talk about his new administration. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Bruce Charles. He's going to talk about neighborhood watch.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the fire department before. Susan and I played volunteer for about 8 years, about 1,000 call-outs. The fire chief job is full-time. He puts in an enormous amount of effort. The reason I know is I did that dumb idea for about 8 years, okay? And we really do need more volunteers. When I came here, it was very interesting. Before I lived here, I went down on a fire and Brooke was there, okay? And she was also the sole EMT at the time. At this time, we only have one EMT. We really need more. And I think Frank's planning a course that'll be held here on a couple of weekends to get people into the first level of EMT. And you don't have to go on every call, especially if you've got a lot of people. A select group can go whatever needs to be done and the other, etc. But one of the other things I suggest, having been a child that enjoys adventure, how's that sound? And then a fighter pilot in Vietnam, I had a lot of things to sort of balance out in case I ever meet St. Peter. And being an EMT or a volunteer firefighter is a good way to do that. Yeah. Thanks, Frank. He's done an excellent job. I've been harassing him every now and then. Okay, neighborhood watch. The very first thing is most of you got a copy of this Mineral County Offers Emergency Notification Plan. This is a new deal. Anybody that didn't, yeah.
Chief.
Got one? Okay. This is a reverse 911 deal. And so that if something very significant is happening out here, dispatch at the county, the sheriff's dispatch, is going to ring it and let you know what's going on. So it would be a really good idea to sign up for this, and it tells you how to do it here. Okay, the next thing is we worked out a deal with the fire department to use their frequency, their West End TAC frequency, in case we get a really bad situation. And we will set up a command post as such and be able to broadcast updates on whatever's going on. Think about a fire. Forest fire or something like that. Or this situation where we had a guy that had been shooting at somebody running around. You'll get notified now by the sheriff's department, but we will be able to use the West End tactical frequency to communicate with all of the people who are part of Neighborhood Watch or anyone else that has a radio that can pick up that frequency. Those of you who have not been part of Neighborhood Watch, a bunch of the people bought small radios like this with a whole bunch of frequencies on them so that you could communicate with each other in a difficult situation, also listen to the fire department or whatever the heck's going on. But this new situation where we've got to deal with the volunteer fire department, I think is very good. Hopefully we don't use it, we probably will. Okay, the Neighborhood Watch program is essentially a small group of neighbors in various places in the West End. And the whole idea is you keep an eye on your neighborhood, on your neighbors, and on anything suspicious that might come around. One of the great advantages we now have is the cell phone. You can take pictures of something that is unusual. My neighbors and I have had several instances where we say, went out because something unusual was going on, okay? And if necessary, we call 911, but again, the sheriff just doesn't have the population of deputies in order to be immediately available. So the Neighborhood Watch can supplement that to some extent. The thing I'd like to emphasize is this is you and your neighbors within several hundred yards, generally speaking. Keeping an eye on each other there, on kids, dogs, whatever it happens to be. Know your neighbors, watch out for everybody else's stuff, their property, their kids, their dogs, etc. It's just simply being a good neighbor with the backup of being if there's a problem or an unusual situation. Take photos, write down details of suspicious individuals, vehicle situations. Discuss this with your neighbors. Tell them what the heck you saw, what you think might be unusual, etc. I've only got one copy left of each of the Neighborhood Watch brochures, but there is a bunch of information on the web. So if you don't have the brochures, if you're looking at possibly becoming part of this or want to help a neighbor, please pick up one of these and it'll give you some idea. Takes care of it. Any questions you all have about the Neighborhood Watch?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think everyone probably heard about the little girl in Spokane, Washington. I think if they had a strong Neighborhood Watch or doorbell rings, that little girl could have been saved. I think a strong Neighborhood Watch, like Bruce is talking about, is very important. Whether you like your neighbors or not, keep an eye on their property. It also ensures your safety. I just think it's very important, and I hope you all decide to join and help the community.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that little girl could have been saved, and just by the fact of somebody looking out their window, you wouldn't necessarily think of a FedEx truck, being dangerous, but just the fact, look out your window once in a while, look at your neighbor's house. If you see something unusual, well, you know something's up.
Well, if you've watched what's happening to the crime statistics nationally, they're up significantly. We've got real inflation going. That's going to make it more difficult for some people who might be somebody to cause trouble. We have an open border. We've got, as the sheriff-elect can probably tell us, we've got a hell of a drug problem here, especially picking on kids.
Yeah.
These are all things that a neighborhood watch could possibly help with.
Yeah, and that's even in our neighborhoods because, I mean, children and teenagers and youthful adults, they get into the drugs and they don't realize that you're bringing it into the community then. So you wanna keep an eye out for that. We need to stop it. You know, if you see somebody drunk driving or if you see somebody that you think is blasted, call 911. I mean, even if it is a good neighbor or dear friend, it's better to save their lives and maybe somebody else's. And sometimes if you don't call, they can lose their lives.
Well, I can give you a personal example. I had a friend here whose 14-year-old daughter was raped by a guy who got on drugs. Okay? I am aware of another young female who was encouraged to take drugs by people who probably ought to be drawn and quartered. Okay?
But it is a big problem. If we can save their lives, the youth is our future. They really are. If we can lead them to what's right and what's best, maybe the world will come along. You never know. It only takes that one community.
We can't fix the nation, but we can work with our own community.
Yeah.
You got it.
Thank you, Bruce. At this point, Ryan probably going to be called out here shortly, so we're going to turn it over to Ryan. Maybe Ryan can talk about his new administration, what he hopes to achieve, and what that means to the community.
Okay, I think I know most of everybody, but I'm Ryan Funke. I'm the current sergeant of the Mineral County Sheriff's Office. I'm going to introduce Deputy Lindauer. If you guys don't know the deputies, you'll get to learn their faces and their names. And like you said, Sheriff-elect come January 1st. I get sworn in on the 30th. So I just want to go off a few things from Mr. Charles presented with the Neighborhood Watch thing. It's very important in small communities because you guys see the stuff. You guys are the ears and eyes of the community. There's also apps on cell phones. I'm part of Old Mill Peninsula down in St. Regis. We have like our own little group, and we can talk amongst each other, on our phones. If you see something, everybody gets notified. So then we don't have one set of eyes and ears. We have 40 or 50. So it is a truly amazing thing, especially with cell phones nowadays. They do anything and everything besides pay you, I guess. But take the information. It's very, very good. Like I said, you guys are the ears and eyes of the community. You guys know who's more or less dealing drugs, stealing, and stuff like that. And just know when you come forward to the sheriff's office, at all times we try to keep people's names out of things. Sometimes we can't in order to further prosecution. But even if you guys give us a tip, so hey, watch out for this or watch out for that. So when we're up in these communities, we can use our own eyes, use our own probable cause to take care of things that people don't want to come forward with. There's a bunch of questions here. I'm gonna kind of go through some of them. Something just popped up on my phone, and so we're gonna have to address it. So describe difficulty of a large county and a small amount of deputies, and how you might increase the amount of deputies. Are there any options such as how our volunteer fire departments operate with unpaid volunteers that only cover their home area? So, currently we're full staffed. We have 3 deputies on each side of the schedule, and then a sheriff and undersheriff. Like I said, planning on having a working sheriff and undersheriff. Understand that's not 40 hours out and about because there's administrative stuff to do, but we have laptops, expensive laptops, and so we can do a lot of work from the field. I'm hoping, I don't drink coffee, but by golly, I'll come up and drink coffee with, you know, people wherever they drink coffee on the West End. Plan on doing the same with St. Regis, Superior, Alberton, and get everybody involved. The deputies need to know who you guys are, you guys need to know who the deputies are, so maybe after the new year, we can all come up and introduce everybody and, you know, say, hey, this is where this deputy lives, so we can build relationships. And I think, you know, Brooke can attest, I try to get up here as much as I can, I just called Brogan today and she's like, hey, Ryan. So it's good that, you know, people in the communities know who we are, that they trust us, and they can call us at any time. I mean, my cell phone's on 24/7. May not answer it 24/7. But as long as people leave me a message, text or anything, I'll get back. And the deputies should also do the same. So I think we were talking earlier about, you know, getting more deputies. Well, of course, there's ideas, right? There's all sorts of ideas on how to get more paid deputies. But as we learned on Friday, there's roadblocks. You know, I think taxpayers give $415,000 a year to a private hospital. Could we use that for the sheriff's office? Absolutely. But those are things that we have to iron out and have to figure out down the road, hopefully sooner than later. Reserve deputies. Anybody, you know, can do an application, be a reserve deputy. You could jump in the car, you know, with a deputy and have a two-man car. So that's more safety for us. That's more people for you, and that's on a volunteer basis. It's good training, especially for younger people who may want to be a cop someday, or they just want to help out their community. Everybody know Joe Bettis, or have talked to Joe Bettis? So Joe Bettis has been a reserve for a long time. I'll just say a long time. And he does it all for free. He enjoys doing it, and he's an asset to this community. So the more reserves we can have, the more we can have functions like when you guys have something for the fire department, we can have a reserve up here, and, you know, just get the community, you know, a lot more protected. If we have a reserve up here and something happens and they're available, then they can, you know, they can go out and help us on stuff, especially the Spitzer incident. I'll get back to that. And hopefully I answered that question. Any ideas of crime situation continues to get worse, inflation, job losses, possible Antifa and Black Lives Matter? That was a giant thing this last year. And that kind of goes back into my last answer is reserves. The more reserve we have, and, you know, if we have a large incident where we need more people, and you have to go deputize people to assist, you know, as private citizens, I'm not gonna say no. I mean, if we're in a situation where it's so bad and dire that we have to go outside of who we have, I mean, protection's protection for your rights and everybody else's. I-90 exit 16 traffic failure to stop at stop signs at the point of entry. I guess West End QRU's almost been hit several times. People don't know what stop means. As a young sarcastic cop once, I would pull people over, and why'd you pull me over? You didn't stop at the stop sign. Well, I slowed down. So, being a smart sarcastic cop someday, you know, earlier in my career, I said, if I was beating you with the stick and you told me to stop, would you want me to slow down? Right? Stop means stop. And it's a pretty good ticket. It's a pretty large ticket that could bring revenue into the county. So, some thoughts and stuff have been in plan with that.
Could we put a sheriff down there for like, you know, a couple hours a day or something, you know?
So we have
tickets out, so that's getting out.
Yep, so we have federal overtime. It's called Stone Garden, and we have quite a few deputies that pay a lot. I mean, it's overtime that the county doesn't have to pay. And, I mean, we can put them on stuff like that. I mean, it creates revenue. They're out looking for drugs, human trafficking, and so on and so forth. So, if you guys have problem areas, you can get a hold of me. I mean, Frank's got my direct line. You know, if you talk to Frank, say, man, traffic's really getting bad. Like, they're really, just send it to me, and I'll just send it to one of the deputies, and it doesn't take any. There's a trooper also up here today, right now. So, I mean, I'm friends with the highway patrol sergeant. We can coordinated with the highway patrol also. So those are things that we can do to make an immediate impact. A lot of the people out of state, semi trucks we've run into in St. Regis, I've almost probably been hit 15, 20 times in the last month there. Nobody ever stops. Nobody stops at stop signs. So, I mean, it impacts, almost every exit, I think, throughout this county as people just roll up there and then they just pull immediately out. So, but if there's an issue, call us, let us address it. Contact the highway patrol, and they also have step money too that we can come up and camera out traffic and make it better for a couple hours, and then the next batch coming from over the pass comes through. But it's a way to generate revenue also. Why are so many warning tickets issued and not actual tickets for a fine? Touche. I also, that's a question in my mind also. I can't force, as a boss, as a sergeant, I can't force them to write tickets. I can't force them to make traffic stops. I can generate, so since I've been here, not to talk poorly about the sheriff's office, is I've been here almost 5 years, had zero job evaluations. Who thinks that's a good idea? Okay. Evidently some people think it's a good idea because, it's continued. Job evaluations, whether they're annually or biannually, it helps me know what the guys are doing. It helps them know what they're doing right and wrong, right? If I hire Brooke and I'm like, here's your job, this is what you do. 5 years down the road, I'm like, gosh dang it, Brooke, like, why aren't you doing this? I've been doing the same thing for 5 years. Like, I've been doing amazing. Like, nobody's ever said anything indifferent. So that's something that we're gonna start. Initially probably biannual, so that they have one in the middle and one at the end. Good, bad, and the ugly, and then you can help. If Deputy Lindauer says, hey, I wanna work drugs more. I wanna work traffic more. Then the training, which will be more, the training that he has, we can designate, hey, there's drug training coming up, he wants to do drug training and direction him towards the training that he wants, and then have everybody else done there. We don't need everybody being the same thing, because that kind of defeats the purpose of, having a team. Were you at the commissioners meeting Friday when Lance Jasper described the continuing Brady problems, or have you watched the video? I was there. So since being elected, I've tried being in meetings. Let me tell you, I've probably spent 30, 40, 50, 60 hours doing stuff other than not getting paid for it. Because it's important for me to know other things leading up to taking office. And so I was there on my own time, always everywhere on my own time for the most part, but I did see that there are issues. Issues are being addressed. The Brady word is kind of, I think, been misconstrued a little bit here and there, but there are issues and they are getting addressed. They need to be addressed because we work for you guys, and you guys need to be able to trust the sheriff's office, and that's one of the big things is.
What Brady issue, like you and I know Brady?
So I think that's what most people look at is mistruths, right?
Yeah.
So Brady issues can even go down all the way to if, let's say you give me a recorded statement and I do my case and I send it up to the prosecutor's office, but I intentionally don't put your statement in. It's something done intentionally to
omission.
Yep.
Just as Brady.
So if I didn't do it on purpose, like let's say, if you could imagine our cases, like I do it by accident, that's not a Brady issue because it's done,
Correct.
but if I do it intentionally, that's a Brady issue. So those things are being addressed. I think a lot of them have been addressed. And if I'm talking too fast, I'm just trying to get through a lot of these questions for you guys. Anybody else have any questions about the Brady stuff? Okay. I mean, tentatively, you know, there's one other, you know, issue, but it's being addressed. Is it correct that the current sheriff is generally not showing up for work? I'm not gonna answer that question. And in uniform, we really have to watch what we say or what we don't say. I'm not gonna sit here and say anything bad. But I also can say, if I don't answer that question, you can assume a lot of stuff. So, I'm gonna let you guys assume.
It is on the video with the commissioners from yesterday's meeting,
Yeah.
that answer.
So if you wanna look at that, I can tell you 100% without saying anything bad, he hasn't been here since the 16th of this last month. Any plans to apply for grants? Who will do the paperwork? We have multiple grants that are being wrote right now. And I believe Tiffany Amberson, one of our supervisors, one of our dispatch leads is doing them. And I will look into more grants, of course, and on how to get those wrote. My treasurer for my campaign is very good at grants, Jessica Schacht, and I think she wrote our last COPS grant, so she's somebody for me to talk to. Escalating drug problem and how to protect the children and younger citizens. So in communities, if this was a very, very large community, let's say I took your guys' population and I times it by 10. Would the perception, right, and the drug problem be as big? Or would it kind of just like filter out amongst the, 10 times the people? So in small communities, it sticks out more, right? Because you all know who y'all are, and there's fewer of you. So when Jim's going down the road and he's like scratching his face and he's got like these giant boils and he doesn't have any teeth and stuff like that, you're like, oh man, Jim, how did you get into that situation? And then you go down the road and you see it more. Of course, being from Lake County, the 5 Indian Reservation, drugs are rampant over there. I would say it's a lot more population. However, I'm telling you guys, it is 4,000 times worse there. The issue that, of course, Mineral County will always have is the interstate. The drugs come into Montana right up there, and they go down Highway 135 and they go I-90 East. We all know it. I mean, we've got several big seizures, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 fentanyl pills, pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of meth, money. And that's working with, our DEA, our task forces, because they get that information, right? Just like I said earlier, you guys have information. I mean, information's easily, given out under the pretense, hey, I just want you to know this is going on, maybe on the lookout for this, and it just helps us. So if we have to focus on, a certain location or a certain somebody. But that question is, starting in January, we're gonna have a DEA agent working in our office every Friday, and that's at no cost to the county. That's just because of people who I'm associated with, and there's a need here, and so once, of course, I was elected, it's a promised position that he'll be here on Fridays. And there'll be an MOU signed with them if I'm allowed to before. If not, shortly after my swearing in, there'll be a memorandum of understanding with the DEA and DCI, so Department of Criminal Investigation with the state, to help us with that position. And with that position, we look at possible in 2024 is more money, right? Possibly hours for, a young deputy who's wanting to get into drugs, right? Wanting to, kind of pin down the drugs and go after, drug trafficking and stuff a little bit more. There's more money, with DEA and DCI, federal monies that can go towards his training, can go towards his wages and so on and so forth. And those are things in the MOU that I'll have to figure out. But starting in January, we'll have that. So I know there's drug issues. It's just we have to be notified. And that's one of the big things is communication. And, communication between, fire departments and the sheriff's office haven't been super great. However, I try to keep in touch with everybody as much as I can. I came up a month and a half ago and had lunch with Frank and talked with Frank. It has to happen, guys. Like, if the sheriff just sits in his office and doesn't talk to anybody, I mean, what good am I? You have to be out in your community because if something happens, right? I've seen a lot of communities where, one or two people chime in and they're like, oh, the sheriff's office, man, what a bunch of dirty rats, and, they suck and they don't do their job. And, I try to be a member of every Facebook group in Mineral County. However, some of them I just can't deal with. But my hopes, within 6 months to a year is, like, I want people from the community to go, knock it off. Like, if you don't like it, go somewhere else. Which there are some people like that. But, are we worth fighting for at this point? I think so. I think, poor public perception, there's been a lot going on in the last year, give or take. But public perception needs to improve because I want everybody in this room when somebody says, that Sheriff Funke, he has no part of being in law enforcement. And then I want everybody to pile on there. Let's get these people out of here. It's not, Facebook is a place where I, share photos of my son so my family sees him. That's what I use Facebook for. And I've seen, during this whole political season, the good, bad, and the ugly. But it's just sometimes, people's that's their nature is they hide behind Facebook and they want nothing more than the bash. But when the good overcomes the bash, it makes me smile. It should make everybody smile. It's like these are our communities, and we need to stick up for people in our communities and our community in whole. So, what expectations do you have of our community? Meaning, how can we help you to become a successful sheriff? That's kind of one of them, right? If I'm doing something bad, call me. Hopefully I'm not doing anything bad, or something that I can improve on. I think a lot of people's issue ultimately was my age, and I guess if people didn't hear any videos or anything, and without this horrible mustache thing I got going on here, y'all wouldn't be able to guess my age. So, I went to the Grizz game and got the Community Hero Award from the Montana Grizz, which is pretty cool. Got going on the football field. My son thought it was amazing. He got to see Monty, and the guy that was organizing the whole thing goes, man, you're kind of young, right? You're going to be a sheriff? You're really young. And I'm like, I like this guy. And so I said, how young do you think I am? And he said, 25. I'm like, you want to become best friends? And so, I really like that guy. So I'll be 44 in 2 weeks. I'm not as young as I wish I was as young as people thought I was. I have a lot of life experience. Doing this job, it's not like, hey, definitely Linda will attest. It's not like your first day and you're like, yeah, man, you go home and, hey, honey, what'd you do today? Oh, nothing. Yeah, no, first day of work was fine. He will attest to you that the first call that he probably ever took as a deputy by himself was pretty psychotic. It was very interesting. A lady was on a psychotic episode. Very interesting, probably the most interesting call that I've probably ever gone to, and I've gone to some pretty interesting calls. But it'll always stick in my head, the good, bad, and the ugly. I have calls that, I wish, would leave my head, and you, as first responders, we've all seen stuff that we don't ever want to re-see. However, what do? We re-see it, Any little thing triggers, And like, I can tell you literally probably every traffic fatality I've ever been on, every suicide I've ever been on, and I can tell you vividly exactly what it looked like. Now, the situation that he was in, it made me laugh, right? Because being a new deputy, like, I went through that. I had a guy my very first day call in the theft of a JCPenney catalog. Now I'm gonna date myself, right? Who's seen a JCPenney catalog? So, and my trainer goes, "You better take this." I'm like, "Is that a thing? Like somebody stole somebody's JCPenney catalog for real?" So I called this guy. I mean, under some psychosis, was a Harvard grad, like he was a professor at Harvard. He just lost it along the way. And he thought wholeheartedly that somebody stole his dang JCPenney catalog. Not only his JCPenney catalog, but the spring edition. And so, it's things like that, you know, when the ugly rears his head, like I always think of, you know, laughter. And that's literally been 14 years ago, plus. But I can still remember, his name is Barry Borderson, and he had goats forever. Like, I could tell you his life story over the last, 14 years probably. But it's like, those little things that like, keep me coming back because, you try to do, leave your imprint and help, That's ultimately what we do is, I understand he's under, some psychosis, but you try to lead him to, go see the doctor, go get help, get on medications and stuff like that. And so, no matter what story it is, hopefully there's always success around it. In this job, there's not a whole lot of success, but a good job goes a long ways. I mean, even in the community, you see one of these guys, hey, you guys are doing a great job. Keeps them coming back. It's kind of like almost sometimes like the beaten dog syndrome. You get beaten. You don't want to get back up. But, every once in a while, a good job, hey, you guys made a difference or anything, it goes a long ways. And these communities are so good about that. I've never asked anybody for a meal, I've never asked, for coffee or anything. But a lot of times you sit down for food, because you're just trying to take a break from whatever. And you go to pay your bill and you go, oh no, somebody picked up your tab meal. Of course, it's very appreciative. The waitresses love it because I just tip them the money to help them out too. It's passing the torch. We're getting a benefit, not asked, and of course none of us will ever ask for anything like that. But if we can pass it on to somebody else, it makes a big difference. Stop signs came up again. Will you be working with Highway Patrol in all situations? Do you intend to have cooperation with Highway Patrol? I am friends with Sean Smalley. If you guys don't know Sean Smalley, he's the sergeant of the Montana Highway Patrol. I have a lot of friends within the Highway Patrol, whether they be captains and so on. I'm not going to throw out a bunch of rank, but I know a lot of people on the Highway Patrol over my years of service. I worked very good with the Highway Patrol, and at one point, so good that they were even in our office. But I don't have control over that, because like I said, I don't want to say anything bad about people. So they're no longer in our office, they're in St. Regis, which is super good for this pass. And so they're, in St. Regis, they can respond up here and, pretty quick. They're also a little bit short-handed. They've lost a troop, maybe losing another troop, but absolutely I'll work with the Highway Patrol on anything and everything. Hopefully have more drug interdictions. Promise you that will happen. We're actually having one by the end of this year. So you will see a lot of Highway Patrol cars coming in the near future, along with, DEA, DCI, Missoula Drug Task Force, Northwest Drug Task Force. There's going to be a lot of quite creepy cops around here shortly. But we got to do that. We got to make that impact. We got to steer the shorts off some people and put those people in their jail. If the Highway Patrol is more than an hour out, will the sheriff come in at an accident on 990 helping the responders so they are not out there for hours? So that's kind of a catchy question. And I don't know who came up with that catchy question, but, so, yes and no, 2 parts. So, I will say yes if we have adequate coverage, because the only reason I'll say no is because if we have somebody, which we've had, sit up on an accident for 12 hours and the highway patrol not be called, that's the only reason I say no, because I need deputies to respond to your guys', you know, if you guys have an issue, I need a deputy responding to your guys' issue rather than sitting on a car crash. And so that's kind of like the, you know, catch-22 is if we have adequate coverage, absolutely. If we only have one guy on, I mean, I would say that's probably not gonna happen. But that also needs to be relayed to you guys as the fire department. And not make it an everyday thing, you know, because Frank's gonna call me, yeah, come on, you guys are never here.
Come on, man, where you at?
Yeah, the sheriff's job is not a 9 to 5 job, like it has been for 5 years. You will see me out at very peculiar times, I'm guessing. Because, I mean, I also, you know, I have a 3-year-old that sometimes needs some care at home, so if I'm out at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm not on drugs, I'm just doing work beforehand. Because I think that's very important for us too, is if we're at the office when everybody else is at the office, there's always somebody that needs to, you know, walk in and, you know, shoot the breeze, which, you know, there's a time and day for that, but, you know, 5 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody there, and that's when you get your work done. So, and then drinking coffee. I'll learn how to drink coffee, I promise.
I don't know, maybe you're not.
So, civil asset forfeiture, I talked to Frank a little bit about it. Is this a practice? When I first started this career, doing civil forfeitures was a lot easier. But the longer it's gone on, the more years it's gone on, it gets harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. We used to be able to seize cars. We used to be able to seize a lot of stuff. And if we go federally, with like the DEA, way easier to do federally. It's just, you know, state, you know, statutorily it's hard. It's not impossible. It's just a lot harder. So a lot of our bigger drug cases that, you know, 300 or 400 pounds of marijuana, I mean, they can follow that back and literally seize all the whole farm, all their vehicles, all their growing, like everything. And so, you know, it looks small on our side, you know, especially with the marijuana thing. It's tougher to do the marijuana stuff, but you know, the more fentanyl pills we get, the more methamphetamine we get. Like they take the cases and they run with them federally. So that means more drug forfeiture stuff for us, and more money that we can spend, not from the taxpayers, but inside our office.
I got a question. What is the law on, you were talking drones, like if you think you have a compound that has fentanyl, coke, or, you know, got a bunch of drug addicts in it, what's the law of sending a drone over to watch? I mean, a lot of people don't know this.
Anybody know the answer to that?
Fourth Amendment.
So the great thing is I've investigated this multiple times because I have private property, right? I don't like people flying on my property. Anybody else like drones on their property? So Montana has the heaven to hell doctrine. So you own the heaven, you own the hell. If you own 2 acres, that 2 acres goes a long ways up, right? And of course, no, time out on that one. So the FAA, of course, has rights to fly through that, right? So most drones are licensed with the FAA. You shoot it out of the air, it's not a great thing. It's a trespassing issue. For us to fly on private property, we need a warrant, just like anything else. Montana has in heightened privacy act. You know, we like our privacy here. I think everybody would attest that privacy is a good thing, and that kind of just falls into that. Very few states have it, but I actually looked it up, and yeah, it's called the heaven and hell doctrine. And like I said, I mean, I don't sunbathe, so I mean, but you don't want people flying over you and invading your privacy and you know your enjoyment of your property. Drugs, I kind of hammered that. Drugs are bad. So I was gonna say drugs are bad in the community, but hopefully, I'm guessing, you know, with very, very little money, from, you know, I'm gonna ask the commissioners for maybe a couple, $2 or $3, but I'm hoping to have, per se, another officer. If not, we're gonna have one do SRO duties until we can figure out a full service, 100% SRO, school resource officer. I'm gonna have one do it, you know, temporarily. Of course, you know, if calls happen, you know, people have to leave, and that's all across the board, even if they're actually a funded SRO. But I'm gonna get with the schools, you know, it's just, you know, hard love is, if you want it, we gotta figure out how to get it. And temporarily, I know how to get it, and it's just gonna happen. So I think an SRO inside the schools is gonna help out, you know, do drug training. I'm very involved with St. Regis schools, because I live in St. Regis. Like, I try to go to every basketball game, on or off duty. Deputy hours in Superior. Most of our council live in Superior. We have 2 in St. Regis now. I'm not the only one. And live just down the road from these guys, both of us.
For now.
They should feel pretty safe. So I think cops getting in schools, you know, we're hopefully getting dogs, maybe, let's say dog, maybe dogs plural. I've worked with the Zeke campaign on trying to get some drug sniffing dogs, which would benefit our schools also, and, you know, our children. Dogs are expensive. You know, you have to feed them, you have to take them to the vet, you have to train them.
We'll give you a Duchess.
I got something on that. I work for a very small department, and we, very similar in size, and we had issues with money. We just don't have enough tax base.
Yep.
It's that simple. You want tanks and Air Force rolling in to protect you, but you don't have $35 million to buy one.
Yeah.
It's that simple, and that was just a metaphor.
Yeah.
Do you have CSO positions, community service officers?
We don't. We have what we call our reserve program, so same kind of thing.
My sergeant, way back in the NAM, had a great idea. He designated a very talented CSO to be our grant writer. And that person got on the old IBM and I'm aging myself, and got onto the federal sites and did nothing but traffic, narcotics, everything. And I had a full DUI trader at that time, given to me by the federal government. That's all that CSO did was write grants.
Yeah.
You have to do surveys. You don't just get a bunch of traffic gear. They want surveys. They want to know how many cars, volume, size. It is not an easy job, but you can have you can designate one person in, if you have that. I'm not throwing stones here, Sheriff. To a grant writer. Let's hire a grant writer, and that's all they do. Hey, you want a submarine? Won't fit in the St. Regis, but let's see if we can get it. You know what I mean? That's all their job was.
Yeah, with federal money, I mean, there's always the match part of federal grants. So before we even apply for grants, you know, I mean, they would have to be approved through the county commissioners to see if the match money's there too.
And on the asset forfeiture, what is the minimal now? Is it used to be? It used to be 85 to the originating agency, 50% to the feds and the state. Now it's a little different. Like, and then they started hitting me with minimums. Like, you have to have at least $1,500 to seize. I'm talking about his property, his RV, and all his bank account. That goddamn doper. Yeah. You know, now excuse my profanity, but asset forfeiture was a viable tool.
Like I said, it got tougher and tougher and tougher.
Because the hippies in the government.
And now that we have one county attorney that does criminal and one that does civil, I mean, this county's overran by criminal cases. At some point in time, I think, like Lance Jasper said Friday, is that, you know, we need more criminal attorneys. I mean, she can't handle what she's got. It's not so much on her. It's just we're getting busy and busier and busier and busier and busier.
I have one more question. This is kind of everybody here. I moved here, I do not like tweakers. Not no use for them, they're a worthless waste of good oxygen. Do we have a tweaker problem here?
I see the other problem on I-90. I know not too long ago, we had 2 illegal immigrants that came through. Now, I'm not racist and I don't have anything, I think everybody should come in legally to America. So we had 2 illegal immigrants that stole a car from in New York or Boston, came through, wrecked the car here. When the police were called out, they were told, okay, there's nothing you can do, you just gotta let them go, and sent them on their way. I think they went up and stayed at, they stayed somewhere here in, Georgia. But is there a way, I mean, that we can arrest them? I mean, they were illegal immigrants, they've got a stolen car, or can we just escort them out? Send them over to Idaho, take them up to the border and say, out.
That's called kidnapping.
We tend to play the shuffle game with Shoshone County on occasion. Is they get tired of somebody, they ship them over and drop them off in Hagen. I don't know if anybody saw the guy with like 68 guitar cases last year. It was a metaphor. 16. He had 16 guitars. You remember this guy? He was there for multiple days. It was hot. It was summertime. He was wearing a down coat. We had a new female deputy, and so I'm like, hey, you gotta go deal with this guy. Make sure he doesn't have any weapons. We ended up giving him 24 hours to vacate. That night I went home and I pulled everything out of my patrol car, and I think by the next day somebody took half of his guitars. So we had room for all of his stuff, and we took him to Missoula where there's, stuff for him, homeless camp, all that stuff. There's nothing here, so
Yeah.
sometimes we play that shuffle game. I know Captain Jeff
But
Lee.
I'm talking strictly about the illegal immigrants.
So illegals,
Can't we hold them then and have them sent back? I mean, or sent back to Washington? Can't we? I mean,
So-
send them back to Biden and send them out.
So
Here we go. Let's let Lynn handle this.
I can attest, I used to run the jail, fun is this. You put an ICE immigrant into our jail,
We'll
he
get
will
sued.
not leave for about a year. So that's your tax dollars feeding him, holding him. It's a wasted spot for a local that drunk driver takes out a kid or something.
I mean, and that's the tough thing that I've seen is we contact ICE, right?
A year.
More or less out of the Whitefish office. When we had, all the people coming to pick the morels, I had, a truckload of morels and like 6 illegals. So I contacted ICE and Billings, no driver's license, no nothing. Yeah, I can arrest on no driver's license, but I bring him to our office. He can't speak English, he'll just sit there forever. And then if we detain them too long, as the Highway Patrol found in Bozeman, gosh, I don't want to give an exact time, but around 5 to 10 years ago, they got sued for millions and millions and millions of dollars for unlawful detention of them, violating their rights. So they have rights.
They got more rights than us now.
So a lot of times, if we encounter somebody who is hanging out or passing through and don't have capabilities to get anywhere, we give them courtesy transport rights, whether it be to Shoshone or whether it be to Missoula. I mean that's how we have to do it. Otherwise, they're going to commit crimes. We had a guy who said, "Give me a ride." And we're like, "No." He's like, "I'm just going to go to the grocery store to steal that." So we gave him a ride because I don't want him to steal stuff from our
Can you,
community.
at least when you stop them or they're there, can you at least find out if there's a way to find out if they're Antifa or somebody we really don't want that would be best to?
So commonly, all the illegals that I've encountered have a passport, just like all of us have passport. The picture is not so great. But it's never stamped in or out of country. I've gone to Mexico enough times that I know when I go into Mexico, they stamp it. When I come back in the U.S., they stamp my book. They're always from Honduras. It's just an easy way to make it and make them pass them out like they're candy. So when we encounter them, we can seize that. because that's an unofficial government document. So we can seize them and send them on their way, but, you know,
Well,
it's,
send them my way, I'll take real good care of them, I'll wrap them up in bacon and tell them, there's a great blueberry patch up the mountain, you're all to see it.
so we, I mean, at the courts rest area, we had a big thing, I think my first year that I was here, we arrested a lot. Man, they ran from the cops, got in rollover crashes. I think the Forest Service wrecked a couple of their vehicles. So overall, you know, the government has probably spent $50,000 to $80,000 in buying new vehicles, new equipment. And then, you know, these guys just took off. Well, then we took their vehicles and put them in our impound lot, fruit and everything, and like 8 months down the road, they're like, hey, I want my car back. And so we were forced to give them their car back, rotten fruit and everything.
Now, this is completely unofficial, but the Texas Rangers 100 years ago issued a thug badge for these problems. And the person with that badge would simply shoot the individual that was the problem. And that's reality. It was a silver badge made from a Mexican silver coin.
Holy cow.
I've got a collection of badges in that.
Watch out for the thugs.
But it's an idea.
So, I mean, that's one of the big things is like, you know, of course, you know, having individuals who don't have any stake in the communities that they come into, Brooke helps me out a lot sometimes. Like when I need, you know, a place for somebody to stay that is unfortunate or has fallen on bad luck. And that's like a lot of people don't see that. And I definitely don't go out and broadcast it because if I broadcast, oh my gosh, Brooke was so amazing. This is what she did. Like they'd be like, yeah, hey Brooke, I lost my tennis shoe. You know, so I think I keep that, you know, near and dear to my heart, and I let the deputies know that if there's a dire situation, here's the people that you can reach out to. And I mean, we're blessed in this community. Like you guys should feel blessed, you know, that they help a ton. And they don't want the notoriety. They don't want me to sit in here and, you know, say how amazing, you know, Brooke and
put a zipper on it.
and her family are, but they are truly amazing. Like you guys should really feel blessed that they're in this community.
There's one other possibility when you run into one of these illegal situations, which just legally you don't have the ability to handle. Every person here ought to get onto the telephone to our senators' offices and say, hey, we got a problem.
Yes.
But I'm serious, and you do that for a week or two, because eventually
Squeaky wheel.
you might win,
Yep.
because they are the problem. The current administration is god-awful, as I don't need to say.
So, I mean,
But you know, and we
yeah.
know.
The big thing is that I'll end with you guys is that, you know, we'll have 3 deputies on a shift. You know, I'm not trying to get one on the east, one central around Superior, and then one working the west end. So, I mean, that should be, you know, what I expect. If there's 2 deputies, you know, of course they'll shrink because we've dealt with some cases that you don't want to deal by yourself, and we just have to do. And then once one person is on shift, and they're just centrally popped in Superior, so, you know, it's 30-minute drive time to whichever end of the county. And like I said, with the highway patrol, if I need the highway patrol, I just call Sergeant Smalley, and he gives me what I want and what I need. So they're a good backup for us. I wish there was 50 of us. It'd get pretty boring at times, but you know, I just look at, you know, what we could do. But as far as, you know, tax base and monies, sheriff's office is the big mouth to feed. However, a lot of times it's the last mouth to feed. So we just have to figure out, you know, the logistics of, you know, the money coming in, the money going out, and maybe try to reallocate some monies. This county's grown. I think there was 150 sewer hookups or something handy.
Over 136 sewer hookups
So
just last year.
there's a lot of untapped revenue because, I mean, anybody built a house in the last year or 2?
Doing it now.
Okay. So it takes 2 years to catch up on your taxes. So
once, you know, I'm guessing there's at least been 300 to 400 houses in the last couple of years. Once the 300 or 400 new houses catch up on the taxes, there'll be more tax income, and, you know, maybe we can shove our foot in the door and say, hey, how about the sheriff's office? You know, we'd like another position. Yeah.
Have you considered actually a specific grant or tax for the sheriff's office, a public service and public emergency tax?
I mean, that's always an option. I know a lot of, you know, and as I've expressed, if you guys have, you know, read anything that, you know, have tried to put me out, whether it's social media or in the paper, is, you know, a lot of people in Mineral County, you know, were taxed to the hilt, you know. You know, they're on retirement monies and everything else, and so they can't afford, you know, to be taxed and taxed. I don't want to tax you guys to death. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't want to tax myself to death. I think the whole taxes with the hospital and a few other ones, maybe those need to be opened up and like looked at. If there was a possibility to where you could pick one or the other for those 33 mills, $415,000, I would do, you know, public safety mill levy and say, hey, how about the taxpayers give me the $415,000? Like, we could do a lot of work for $415,000, let me tell you. But it's like, you know, the taxpayers voted for this, and I don't know if there's any way how. And it's a 10-year, it's for 10 years.
Yeah.
So it kind
I
of
was
makes.
just thinking, you being a new guy, the situation being such that maybe with some other citizens helping, that might be a
I think if you investigate and you put a public safety mill levy, sorry for my language, but you don't do a half-ass. If you put everything into it, and you have people in the community, especially, you know, like the high pollutant people in your communities back it, and you sell it. I mean, I'm a salesman. I mean, I have to sell tickets to people. And, you know, not all my customers are happy, but I can sell a ticket. You know, it took me several years to be able to, you know, sell somebody a ticket. I wrote an 86-year-old lady a ticket, first ticket ever in her life. And she cried a little, but she thanked me, and she got out and gave me a hug and said, thank you for writing me this ticket. She's going 40 over. I thought I'd put it out there. She was going 90 and 50, and I'm like, I'm not going to, she's like, and I'm like, no. But I sold the ticket, right? And so that's what I try to, you know, telling the new deputies that I train is like, it's all about how you treat people. You know, if I treat people with respect, no matter what they've done, you know, they could be an axe murderer, I have to treat them with respect, right? If I treat them with respect, they usually respect us right back. And, you know, a lot of times people apologize, but you have to sell the ticket. Because if I don't sell the ticket to you, if I go, oh, here's your ticket, have a good day, you know, you're going to go to court. You're going to fight me in court. But if I'm like, hey, Mr. Charles, you know, sorry, you know, here's your citation, you know, we got to make sure you just.
I got some friends in Chicago. It's cheaper.
You gotta sell it, and you gotta, you know, because if not, then we're just gonna like backdate, you know, the justice system with a bunch of crummy tickets that we wrote because we don't care. So it's all about you know, putting everything you have into it, and hopefully you get everything back out of it. But you don't ever do anything half-assed, because if you have to come back and do it, no, I remember the last one. Absolutely not.
I got a question for everybody in here. Would you support a public safety grant so that we could have a few more deputies?
Well, yeah, you could write them all day if the feds are giving money for it, but it's like writing a novel. So it's not just a few pages and check the box. So there's a lot of work to be done putting into the novel. Then you got to back it up with statistical facts, because they're going to ask why. That's their big one. Why do you need it?
Well, you guys are going to ask why, right? Because if you do a public safety mill levy, it's for the taxpayers. So, I mean, if we were to do it, and of course it's not a short-term thing, not in the next 6 months or a year, but it's going to take all of that to buy writing. And then to present it to you, when you have a question, I'll be like, Yeah, go ahead and flip to page 94. And then say, you know, it's answered here. You know, we don't make the greatest wage, and I think Lance Jasper, if you go back to the video, he says that, you know, hey, if we want quality people who want to stay here and want to, you know, have their family here, want their kids to grow up here, we're going to have to pay them like we care. I started here at $18.70 an hour after leaving Lake County at $25 an hour. I don't do this job for the money, otherwise I wouldn't do this job.
They couldn't afford you.
I do it because, you know, I enjoy helping people. You know, people always say, when you interview to be a cop, what are you going to say to that question? I like to help people. And that's always the answer they say, not the answer, right? Because everybody wants to say that. But in true terms, that's what we want to do. You know, nothing makes me happier is when I deal with somebody who is doing drugs, you know, drinking alcohol and going down the wrong path, to come up and give me a hug 2 years later and go, you saved my life.
Gotta be the best feeling.
It doesn't happen very often, but I had a good friend who I went to high school with. He ran for me. I didn't wreck my car, but almost. He about hit me head on. He was doing drugs, and I went into his mom and dad let me into the house to arrest him, and he ran from me. Took me 2 days to find him because I know people. And we found him, and he went to prison for 2 years. I saw him. I was with my family, and he came up, you know, gave me a hug and said, "Hey man, you changed my life. You saved me." And so it's like those things, like keep the cops who say, "Why do you want to be a cop?" Because I care. Like I want to help people. So I want to help my community. I want, you know, my community to thrive. I want my community to feel safe. You know, that's what we want. And, you know, this is the only county I've ever been shot at. $18.70 an hour I was getting shot at. So, yeah, money's always a bonus. I think the group of guys we have now, I mean, if somebody came and said, "Hey, I'll give you a $5 an hour raise," okay, yeah. I mean, I don't think you'd say no to that. But at the same point, we're not at the commissioner meetings going, "Give me money, give me money, give me money, give me money, give me money." So, you know, I hope, you know, if it does come to that, you know, people can see that we have a good group of core guys, and we're always looking to build. Hoping to have a hiring pool. Wasn't really allowed in the past, but, you know, if we can have a deputy hiring pool, detention hiring pool, and dispatch hiring pool, so if somebody quits, we can just step up and say, "Hey, you're number one on our list, you still want a job." You know, and then go down the list. Because what we're doing now is we have a vacancy. A week later, we have to be on the agenda for the commissioners to say, "Hey, can we hire for the position we just fired or we just lost?" "Yeah, go ahead." Then it takes 2 to 3 weeks, put in the paper. Our social media is not used. It will be used a lot. And then, you know, maybe a month later, we get 1 or 2 applicants. We interview them. We're like, "Hey, yeah, you're the best out of the 2. You want a job?" "Yeah, well, I have a job. I'm going to have to give my 2 weeks." And then you're looking at 2 months before you can hire this position. So we need to look at ways to speed past that and to be able to say, "Hey, we have a hiring list. Do you still want a job?" "No, I got hired." "You want a job?" "Yep." "All right, when can you be here?" Instead of having it 2 months down the road, maybe a week or 2. So
Then depending upon his training and experience, you gotta train the guy.
Yeah.
Else he's out there taking his nose.
So, I mean, there's a lot that goes to, you know, detention, dispatch, you know, and being a deputy. I mean, I trained him for, it sounded like eternity. But, you know, to send somebody through the whole training, right? You get somebody who's a lot better than if you send them through half the training, because the last thing I want is somebody, you know, creating a, you know, hazard or risk to you guys, not knowing the job, and then to him, like, wanting to do the job, and like his heart's there, but he doesn't know how to do the job. So, you know, we need to train, you know, high guys. I mean, he's a good deputy. He'll be a good deputy here until he retires.
One more question.
Holding you to it.
One more question, Sheriff. and I will
We're gonna have to wrap it up here pretty soon.
Your reserve program,
Yep.
you have level reserve 321.
So our reserve, I like this question. Our reserve
It's a
program.
solo, what I'm doing, talking about is a solo debt.
Our reserve program, the only solo one we have is Joe Pettis. We have one that is a chaplain, and anybody on the west end that wants to be a chaplain, for whatever reason you want to be a chaplain, hook me up. Come and talk to me, or if you know anybody who wants to be a chaplain. I want like 5 to 10 chaplains, and it's because, sometimes we need somebody to talk to, and a lot of times we can't get, because we only have 1 or 2, we have one, he's out of state or unavailable, and like, it's just as important for us to have a chaplain as for you guys. Death notifications, some traumatic thing happens to you. I mean, we can present the chaplain. If you don't want to talk to the chaplain, don't talk to the chaplain, but I will use the chaplain to the end of the earth because it's very important for, our mental health. But, so we have one guy that does court, one guy who is doing some evidence stuff, and then our chaplain, and then our one reserve. So, do we have a reserve program? I would say no. Do we have reserves? Yes.
Okay, I gotta go, but I got one more for you.
Shoot.
My 215 card has expired. Can I come down and get some range work done, fire it back up?
We have a fireman instructor actually on staff. I mean, if you want to call down to the sheriff's office, his name's Deputy Ethan Atkin.
Well, I haven't, just because this is an open carry state, I don't do a lot of travel, so.
Yeah, I mean, you can if
Still
you
want to fire it back up.
if you need to do range work. I mean, he's our range guy. Yep. And he can do that.
We
I
should
mean,
sign up for that.
we do all that. He's going to be putting on the course for all the law enforcement guys.
Would you guys please excuse me? I've got dogs that are going to.
No, you're good. You're good. All right.
I'll give you a heat later.
Okay, you said you're gonna have, hopefully, 3 deputies, one in Superior, one in St. Regis, one out here on the west end.
Well, Alberton, Superior, and then West.
Okay, sorry. But West End, in my experience from being even in St. Regis, and we're gonna be moving over here, sorry folks, is that West End tends to be treated more like the unwanted stepchild. Nobody wants to be out here. No, and not the law enforcement or anything. My son-in-laws are both law enforcement. Bigger cities, I wish they would come out. But, so about 6 weeks ago, we had a personal issue out here, and the community came out and helped us, protected us. But when the deputy came out, nothing has been done. We have called continuous times to the sheriff's office with no response from that deputy. And we keep getting told we have to talk to that deputy. What's the accountability? Where's the loophole where I can get around?
So,
What?
I talked to the man sitting on your left. I'll address that. He's, I think the one that we're talking about has been gone for a week or more. He's got a lot of voicemails I saw on his phone today.
Most of them are, sure.
So I'll send him an email. Yeah. I'll send him an email saying that he needs to get hold of you guys.
Okay, so somebody else needs to do it because we've lost trust.
Okay. All right. Don't want that.
No.
Okay. We'll take care of it.
Thank you.
So I mean, that's the big thing, is if the deputies don't know, if the, new sergeant coming on doesn't know, the undersheriff doesn't know, the sheriff doesn't know, we're kind of like this,
Right, yeah.
and that's not a good situation to be in. And, yeah, for anybody. So if something comes up, like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and I understand like a lot of people don't want to be the squeaky wheel, because it's like, well, they got enough stuff to do, Be the squeaky wheel, because ultimately, especially over this last almost month, is like things have been thrown at my feet, and I try to and so now I'm taking more work onto the deputies, right? I've answered a lot less calls over the last month than I've ever answered in my life. So normally, I do sergeant duties, coroner duties, FTO, scheduling, and then the job of a deputy on top of it. And so because it's gotten a little bit slower, and because I do work, we do have good deputies, is like he gets the brunt of my work. So, it's not always a good thing, but I know he can handle it, and, you know, the more experience he gets, the better. And then I can, you know, kind of tussle on a few other things. So call us. If you don't get a call us again. And I'm the guy who usually, if I get phone calls or text messages, I answer in a fairly timely manner. So,
And I can attest to that.
and that's our
emails
and that's our job.
texts, and him calling me, he's always called back, always sent a text message.
So I look at my work phone 5 to 10 times a day on my days off when I'm available to do that. Because, I mean, my job, you know, currently, even as a sergeant, is to serve the community. So a lot of times people call me instead of calling the office. So, all right. Well, I think I talked a lot longer than I thought I was going to talk. But I'm kind of a jabberjaw, so if anybody wants to talk, just call me.
Yeah, let's thank Ryan for being here.
Hey, thank you.
If this was a bigger community, you know, and we asked the sheriff to come out here, we would not get any response, you know, so you really gotta give a big hand to Ryan for coming out. Thank you for,
And we'll be a bigger part of our communities.
and I
You
appreciate
know,
that.
more involved in the schools and everything. So, all right.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Good to see you. See you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Linda's got it.
Oh, he's good. Oh, cookies
You got arm wrestling for the
Now,
I'm the little deputy all in one shot.
now Juliet Miller is gonna get up here and talk about the new community resource program that's going on. This is something new, that she's actually put together, and I think, come on up, Juliet.
Thanks, Frank. So, hi, I'm Juliet. I'm not a very good public speaker, but I want to be. I have great ideas, but we all as a collective community can come together like we have with this. The fire department, the neighborhood watch, and now I'd like to try and make a community resource line. In other words, we had a community member who had an accident at home and drove himself partway to get emergency help. When he left and was gone for a couple of weeks. And his place was left unlocked. And so finally he gets a hold of us and we were able to secure his property for him. If there's a resource line, now he knows, or even the fire department could call and say, maybe somebody can go secure his property. Just shut his gate, make sure his lights are out, stuff like that. I had a situation myself this year where Clayton had surgery. Same day Clayton had surgery, I fell off a curb and broke my ankle. So now we have one in a cast and another one in a cast. And I just simply needed somebody who could pick up a knee scooter for me so that I could get around. We had a truck driver up on the pass who walked in the dark 8 miles before the HP picked him up, brought him down to Hagen. He stayed at the hotel, but the next day, he had no way to get back up to the top of the pass or to get a part that was waiting for him on the Idaho side. So an Idaho side tow company called us and we said, well, sure, we'll run him up to the top of the pass. That's not a problem. I've come across people who are food insecure or maybe don't have enough wood to make it through the winter. These aren't necessarily things that we people, us prideful people up here in the West End, want to post on Facebook. But we know that we are a community that takes care of each other. And that if we call our neighbor, I know they can help me find milk for a frozen kitten. So I'm starting this resource line and I'm asking for volunteers. I'm not asking you to give free. I'm not demanding that you give out your phone number to strangers. The resource line would be a place to collect this information. Those that are willing to say, donate anonymously food or clothing for someone who has a house fire. Or somebody snowed in, they need to get unplowed so that they can get to a doctor's appointment. One of our volunteers that has volunteered for this, that's why he's not here, is because he had to go dig someone out so that their son could take his cat to the doctor, and he's been snowed in for 3 days. So these are the little things that our community takes care of each other for, but I'd really like to be able to put that in one place where someone who's relatively new here, we've only been here 5 years, can find a resource. Plus, we do have some travelers that come through that get stuck, say an accident, and it's gonna take a day or two to get someone out to pick them up. Maybe car broke down and all they simply need is a phone to call somebody. Collectively, we can solve anything, and between the neighborhood watch and the fire department and a resource place where we can find help, I think that we can make it through harsh winters, and this particular winter looks like it's gonna be pretty bad. I don't wanna see our neighbors struggling. I wanna see us all help each other, and so I'd like to be that point of contact. I have a little thank you to Lynette. She's been invaluable for helping me put this organized together. So there's a list of all different kinds of things that you can donate, you can help. If you want to volunteer, but you don't want your phone number given out to somebody in need, we can certainly do that for you. Say, come over and pick up a box of clothing to take to someone, or food to take to them. You don't have to directly get yourself involved. Some of the things that came up that people have already spoken to me about willing to help with, emergency plowing services. And that's not to say somebody's gonna come out and plow your whole place for free. That's to say we have people who have volunteered to negotiate with you. What you can negotiate between the person who wants to help and what you can pay is between you two. It's not, I recommend it is really good. It's, this person has volunteered to help people in need. Same thing with a slip tank. We've lent out our generator on a temporary basis for someone when the power was out. Same thing with a propane tank. We've lent out that and got it back. Help with meals or cooking meals. It was kind of hard cooking meals between one arm and 1 foot with him and I, but we managed. Shopping for supplies, picking up a medication in Plains or Superior. Those are all kinds of things that this resource line can help people do without having to call your neighbor, the only neighbor, or call the same person every time, or maybe they can't get it quick enough, however that works. Maybe another thing I've lent out is a propane cook stove when the power was out for an extended period. How do you cook when you got electric range? Water hauling. Transportation. Sometimes in advance notice, somebody can say, can you give me a ride or can I ride with you to Missoula because the weather's pretty crappy. Retirees that have experience in electrical or water sewer work or mechanical work are encouraged to volunteer, but once again, that's not to say you're going to give your services away. It's to say you're willing to help your neighbor and you're willing to negotiate with them. Same thing for those people that want and need help. We want to respect your privacy and we really want to show respect and compassion. And going to Facebook and saying, I'm without propane, I'm without food, I got 2 kids up here and I'm stuck in 5 feet of snow, that's kind of humiliating. And for any of our neighbors in this community to be able to not have to broadcast their pain is a lot of what I'd like to see. Firewood, excavator work, there's all kinds of things. I can probably name a million different things we can help each other with, but I'm just asking for our community to come together. This helps the fire department because the fire department can't do everything. They don't want to be paged out for somebody who just simply slipped off the road into the ditch because they can't pull them out. And maybe there's somebody in the community who's more than willing to go tug you out in the morning, you know, no harm, no foul, you didn't need a medical, you know, things like this. So there is a sign-up sheet back here, and it does ask what you'd be willing to volunteer for. If you don't even want to write that down, just put your name and phone number down. I'll call you and we can talk about how much you want to volunteer or how much you are willing to offer to help. Like I said, donation versus negotiation is kind of the whole point with this, but it's also the point to make sure our neighbors aren't suffering. So, thank you, Frank, for hearing my idea and helping us put it together. Thank you so much, Bruce, for putting together the Community Watch and the Neighborhood Watch and continuing forward to help us build that in our many different areas of our community. And Lynette and the Happy Homemakers, I can't thank you enough for putting up the warm place for us to be, the coffee on, bringing the cookies, and just really helping me put everybody together. So talk to me afterwards or call me. I have a phone number already, and I don't have any reach out. So feel free to call me anytime if you need something or if you'd like to volunteer.
You know, I'd like to say, you know, she touched on a lot of different things. And it is, she touched on the stuff that was stuck up the path. You know, I would have done it for nothing. I went up there, helped the guy up there, he offered me $200. I said, you know, no. You know, I'm just doing you a favor out of kindness in my heart. He said, well, you gotta take some. I said, well, you know, give me whatever you feel. It ended up turning out to be a all-day event. But you know what? I felt good about that. And I think that's not the feeling we all need to feel once in a while when we can help our neighbors out. And he even gave the $50,000 a plus you know, thank you very much, saying that they did an outstanding job in helping him that night before. I don't know if you were aware of what that situation was. And you know, the guy's been, he was from New York, and he's been in touch with me, you know, since he's been home. And he said, you know what? He said, one bad experience he experienced was overridden by the other generosity of people in this community. So, you know, those are the kinds of things, and like Ryan was saying, you know, doing an evaluation system. If he tells that deputy that's doing a good job that he's doing a good job, you know what? That carries more weight than any monetary or anything else, because it gives you that feeling inside your heart. You know, I'm willing, you know, you want me, you need to ride to Smokerville, pick something up or whatever. You know what? I'm willing to go up there and pay for my gas or whatever. You know, and I probably wouldn't expect you to fill my tank up. But you know what? Or if I'm going over there, I'd go do it. Just because that's what I am. And I think there's a lot of people in this community that have that same feeling, just sometimes they don't know how to say it. And it's not saying I'm going to do it for free, or you know, if you have a car stuck in your driveway, maybe all it needs is a little pickup, you know, someone to help pull you out of that snow. You know, you can call and ask, hey, you know anybody that may be able to come up my driveway and pull me, give me a little tow. It's all as simple as it takes.
I also have cards on the table back there if you want to take one and call me later or pass it on to somebody who may need things. So, I do have quite a list of county and state resources that reach outside of our West End, but for the most part, I try to get volunteers for the West End people. We're not going to be running down to St. Regis and bailing people out. I love them dearly, but I really want to make sure that our community's taken care of. So Salties to Henderson and Cabin City, that's our community. Let's watch out for each other. So thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. And remember, we do have several sign-up sheets here for the fire department, for the neighborhood watch, and for the community resource. I want to thank everybody for coming. There's still a lot of snacks up there, still a lot of coffee.
Well, maybe take cookies home.
If you turn
And
those
grab some
cookies in,
literature, if you guys want some literature, get some literature, take it with you.
we talked about it.
If I could still carry over the mark.